Well, hello again everybody, and welcome back to another collection video, and this is part one of the big one for me, my PlayStation 2 collection. This is the one that I have the most games for, over 300 games at last count. And I've been stalling on doing the videos for this because I just didn't know how I was going to sit down and do it. But I just decided I'm going to break it up into probably about 4 or 5 videos altogether. This first video will probably have the most games in it. It's my games A through E, or actually I should say numbers through E. So I'm going to start off with the games that have numbers in the title. And then we'll go through that. At the end, either in the final video or in its own separate video, I'm going to cover a bunch of loose disc games that I have, some demos and some other PS2 related games and whatnot that's in my collection. So anyway, I guess we'll just jump right on into it here, and I don't know why it's taken me this long to figure out where to sit in conjunction to the camera so that I can show off a game and it's not blocking my face. Anyway, the first game in my collection here is 24 the game. I have not played this game. I have never watched the show, but I had a friend who was really into this, and she said that the game was pretty good, and I was able to get it cheap. I think it was last year. Next is 25 to Life. I don't know much about this game. It was like an online, sort of like GTA Online, well before GTA 5 came out, but I don't think it had the best reviews. Next is 007 Nightfire. Bond games. You know, some Bond games are really good, some of them are not. As far as I know, though, this is supposed to be a pretty decent one. You'll probably be surprised how many of these games I have not played. Up next is a game that I have played, though. It's Aggressive Inline, and you know, in the flood of Tony Hawk games and other extreme sports games that came out, this one came out without any kind of a sponsored attachment to it, and it was actually a really decent game. And up next is Aqua Teen Hunger Force Zombie Ninja Pro-Am. This is an unopened, brand new copy that I got recently, but I bought this game when it came out and played it and beat it. Really enjoyed it. I love the show. This game is a crazy, representation of the show and its humor, but it's also, as far as gaming goes, it's both a kart racing game, a golf game, and like a hack and slash game. If you like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, you've got to buy this game and check it out. And up next is Ark the Lad End of Darkness. File this under my RPG games that I tracked down to have on all my different consoles, so that I have these experiences to have at least somewhere down the road. I've never really played any Ark the Lad games, but I have End of Darkness, and then I have Ark the Lad Twilight of the Spirits. And I'm just hoping that they're decent games. End of Darkness is Namco. This Twilight of the Spirits doesn't show it's from Namco, so I wonder if it got passed on to a different developer. And here's one of my favorite games, Area 51. Did a video on this in my favorite games series, so check that out if you want to hear more about it. And up next I've got ATV Off-Road Fury, ATV Off-Road Fury 2, ATV Off-Road Fury 3, and ATV Off-Road Fury 4. I'm a fan of ATV games and off-road style racing games and whatnot, but I have not had a lot of experience with the ATV games. I just managed to piece these all together a couple months back for not that much money, so I was pretty excited. Here's a game that's got one of these cruddy, like, rental cases, but it's backyard wrestling. Don't try this at home. These games are pretty bad. I've played this one years ago, and there was nothing special about it. It highlights something that I was into for a while, not personally doing it, but watching the videos, the backyard wrestling videos. But the game itself is just, pretty dumb. There's a sequel. I don't have the sequel, but One of these days I'll track that down. Here I have a brand new copy of Bad Boys Miami Takedown. Just a crappy movie video game. I've never seen the Bad Boys movies, and I don't know anything about this game other than I'm sure it's not very good. Alright, up next I have Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Of course, these and a couple other games in my collection are pretty popular games, very coveted by the fans of these. There's a sequel to this one that I don't have. I'm not looking forward to trying to track that down in a complete copy because these can be a little bit on the pricey side. It's not necessarily my style of game, like an RPG with the isometric viewpoint, sort of like Diablo and those kind of games. But they're pretty good for the fans of that kind of game. Up next is a game called Barbarian. This was just one of those pickups I made recently because it was cheap and it was complete. But I don't know anything about that game. And in relation to the Baldur's Gate game that I just showed, this is a game that I do like simply because of how funny it was and how much it kind of poked fun at the genre. But this is the Bard's Tale, and that's just it. It plays like a Baldur's Gate game. It plays like Champions of Norath, but it's done with tongue planted firmly in cheek. It takes a lot of stabs at the genre, at the archetypes, at the stuff like breaking a barrel and there being a piece of turkey and some coins in it, you know, silly stuff like that. This is unfortunately one of my games I don't have a manual for. That won't stand. Okay, up next too is Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. I haven't played a lot of Battlefield games. Battlefield games nowadays are known more for like 3 and 4 and their online thing and how they are stiff competition for Call of Duty. But I haven't really had any kind of experience with any of the Battlefield games, even though I own a few of them. Up next is Battlestar Galactica. This is from a group of games I bought from a friend of mine who will probably be watching this video, so hi Ron. It's based on the old television show that I haven't had much experience watching, so I don't know much about the game, but one of these days I'll check it out. Maybe it'll be kind of as fun as the Colony Wars games for the PlayStation. And up next we got Beyond Good and Evil. This is sort of a cult classic game. I really enjoy the game, but I was stuck at a particular point in it and haven't really tried to play it in a long time. And then I've got Black. This is a first-person shooter game. It's a pretty cool looking game. The destruction levels for a PS2 game were pretty nice. I don't recall if this game got a sequel or not. Yeah, up next is Brave, the Search for Spirit Dancer. This game kind of shocked me. You could kind of call this like Jak and Daxter Light. It's that kind of a platformer game with kind of a kid-inspired, or not necessarily inspired, but like a character geared at the kids to get the kids into a game. It was really good. It was really decent. It was something I paid like $9 or $10 for on Walmart.com. My only gripe with it, was that I played it last year and I felt like I was just starting to get done with all the tutorial type stuff and the game was over. So it's just basically it's short. Alright, the next one up here is a game I'll have probably a hard time pronouncing, but it's Bujingai, The Forsaken City. This was just a cool looking game that I saw on eBay and I looked it up on GameFAQs and thought that'd probably be worth picking up it was at a fair price, but I haven't played it. Up next is one of my favorite games. This is Bully. This is the PS2 version of it. I recently played and completed the 360 Scholarship Edition. I did a video on this in my favorite game series, so check that out if you want to hear some more thoughts. But that's a very, very, very awesome Rockstar game. And hoping one of these days we'll see a sequel, even if it doesn't come out on a console that I own. Alright, up next is my Burnout Anthology, and that is, let's see, Burnout 3 Takedown, which is my favorite of the group, Burnout Dominator, and if I can get the last one out, Burnout Revenge. They're all good games, but Burnout 3 Takedown was my first real experience with the Burnout series, and it's an amazing game. Probably a game that would, I mean, it's like that close to being a part of my favorite game series. Up next is an unopened copy of Call of Duty Legacy, so I won't pull the games out to show them off, but it's Call of Duty Finest Hour and Big Red 1. I know I've played and beat Big Red 1. It was really good. I'm pretty sure I probably beat Finest Hour because I think I owned this Legacy collection once before. But now I've got an unopened copy, even though the seal's starting to bust a little bit on it. Alright, up next is Castlevania Curse of Darkness. I'm kind of torn on Castlevania games. I mean, I've played a few over the years. A lot of the ones that came out around the time of the N64 and the PlayStation 1 were really good and really ambitious, but I don't know how they are these days because I haven't played any in quite a while. And I mentioned this game before, Champions of Norath, another similar style game to the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games, but once again, not a gameplay style that I'm all that enthused with. So these are more for collection purposes, and these are also sought after games. And there's a sequel, which actually I may have, because I can't remember if that has a different... It's one of those sequels that I think the name is such that if I put it up here alphabetically, it may not be right here next to this one. I can't remember now. I'm just kind of noticing that my case is broke there on the top a little bit. Okay, moving along. Up next is Cold Fear. I guess you could call this Resident Evil on a ship. I had this game years ago and played it a little bit, and it was kind of cool, but I just was disinterested in it after a while and got rid of it, and I picked it up again recently. And up next is Constantine for the PS2. I really enjoyed the movie, but as we know, most movie video games are not all that good, so I don't hold out hope that this is a good game in any way, shape, or form. And up next is Corvette. I'm almost positive that this was basically a budget racing game when it came out. I got it in a big lot full of games, and I got it for cheap. Okay, up next I have 2 copies of the same game, so let's show them off. Crazy Taxi for the PS2. This is bonus mini strategy guide enclosed. And yeah, my copy has the strategy guide in behind the manual. And then I also ended up managing to pick up a greatest hits copy of this. I'm kind of split on how I feel about having greatest hits copies. I'd prefer to have everything black label, but I feel like right now in my collection, if I have both, I would probably keep the greatest hits just for posterity's sake, I guess. Okay, up next is Dance Dance Revolution Supernova 2. All I can tell you about these games is you won't catch me ever playing a Dance Dance Revolution game, or really any kind of a dance game. Even though I own 1 or 2 dance style games for the Kinect, I've never even played them. This is kind of a sad one here, in my opinion. This is a really, really good game, but my copy is horrible. It's Dark Cloud. It's a greatest hits version. You can probably kind of see it's faded, it's wrinkled, it suffered some sort of water damage somewhere along the way. The disc is fine. The book inside is kind of crinkly. So I'll be on the lookout someday for at least a new case, although I'd love to get one that's not a greatest hits. And up next too is another one of my favorite PS2 games, Dark Cloud 2. I did a video on that in my favorite game series. Check that out if you want to hear some more thoughts on it. Up next is Dark Watch. This is like a Western horror first-person shooter. And I've only played a demo for this, but I really liked it. I picked up this copy. It's brand new and unopened. I'll open it up one day and play it because like I said, I really enjoyed the demo. And up next we have the Da Vinci Code. Even though it's got a Best Buy sticker on it, I bought it online from eBay for less than $19.99. Love the movie, but it's a movie game and it's probably pretty poor. So I'm not in any hurry to check that one out. And up next is Dead to Rights. This was a series that I really wanted to love. I find myself just kind of finding it interesting. The dynamic with the dog and all that I thought would be kind of cool, but I just haven't really spent much time with the game. There's a couple games out, but I only have the first one. Here's one of my favorite series, and this is another pandemic game series. I've mentioned them in the past. This is Destroy All Humans. Like I said, made by Pandemic. They made the Mercenaries games, Star Wars Battlefront games. Is that right? Is that the name of that? Can't believe I'm spacing on that. Battlefront, I'm pretty sure. But that's the first Destroy All Humans. And Destroy All Humans 2. Alright, last stack of this first video. First I have Destruction Derby Arenas. Yeah, Arenas. This is a game in a series of Destruction Derby games. I played the first few games on the PS1 and loved them, but I haven't had any experience with the PS2 game. Next up is Deus Ex: The Conspiracy. And of course, Deus Ex is a big cult classic game, and it's a series. And I have not had much experience with it, so I'm looking forward to trying out a bunch of these. I have an Xbox One and an Xbox 360, I believe is the one I had the newer Deus Ex for. If I ever find the time to actually play video games instead of talking about video games and watching YouTubers play video games, I might actually get in on some of this stuff. Up next is Devil Kings. I don't know much about this. It was just another one of those cool looking games for a decent price on eBay. So I added it to the collection. And I have Devil May Cry. I may be in the minority here, but I'm not a big fan of the Devil May Cry games or even the Devil May Cry style of games. Which is probably a little shocking considering I just did a video where I talked about wanting to get Bayonetta 2 for the Wii U, and that's a kind of a similar style as this. But I don't know, there was just something about Devil May Cry that I just didn't really get into. And up next is Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, the unusual sort of side story slash sequel starring Vincent Valentine, telling a little bit more of the tale of the events in Midgar and you know, the world of Final Fantasy VII. And we have a game here called Disaster Report. Now this is a game that for most people would very much look like and feel like a budget game, and that's pretty much what it was. But this was a really good game. This one and its quasi-sequel, which the name is escaping me, it's later in the alphabet, so when I get to that one in a future video I'll mention it. But it's a really decent game for sort of like it's like survival horror, except there's no horror element, it's more natural disasters. But I think it's really good. It'd be worth a look-see if a person liked games like Resident Evil or Dino Crisis, but didn't want to have the horror aspect to it. Alright, up next here is DOA 2 Hardcore. I actually had several more of the DOA games, but I got rid of a bunch of them a couple years back, and I ended up with a couple games that the store I took them to wouldn't take, and this was one of them. I don't know, it's a crazy series, and I talked a little bit about it in my PS1 collection video. I just was attracted to it for one major reason, and as far as a fighting game is concerned, it just didn't do much for me. I'm sort of a Mortal Kombat guy, and not much else. Alright, up next is another one of my favorite games. It's in my favorite game series, Dog's Life. Check out the video if you want to hear more my thoughts on this one. And same thing as this one, Downhill Domination. Another one of my favorite games. Check out the video on that one if you want to hear more of what I think about this very fun downhill mountain bike racing game. And up next here is Dragon Quest VIII, Journey of the Cursed King. This is a special boxed version, and I'm trying to remember exactly why it was boxed. It's got that extra booklet in there with it. It also has a playable demo of Final Fantasy XII in the back there. And I'm pretty fond of getting Square games that have demos for other Square games in them, especially the stuff that had to do with Final Fantasy VII, but this one having 12 in it was pretty cool. This is a game that I have played a few times and gotten started in it, but I just never kind of stick with it. But it's an RPG game, guaranteed to give me hours and hours and hours of fun. Alright, up next is Dragon Rage. I don't know much about this one. It just looks like you maybe play as a dragon. You can fly around and fight a bunch of enemies, probably, you know, fire, breathing, magic attacks, and yada yada yada. Haven't played it. Here's another one of my favorite games, Drakon the Ancient's Gates. So check out the video for that one to hear some more thoughts on this. Very underrated and under the radar style game in my opinion, that's worthy of a look if you like fantasy style games and dragons. And speaking of dragons, up next is Drakengard. This is a series that a friend of mine was really into. I first was like told about it a few years back by an online friend who was really into them. I picked up the first one. I don't have the second one. I missed out on the really cool special edition Drakengard 3 when that was up for pre-order a couple months ago. I canceled my pre-order, decided that $80 or so would be better off somewhere else, but now I kind of wish I would have gotten it because if nothing else, it's probably going to be worth a lot of money. Alright, up next is Driver 3. I'm a big fan of the Driver series, but I have more experience with the first two. And I haven't played this one or the other ones that came after that. Up next is Dual Hearts. Probably about as close to a Zelda-style game as you're going to find on the PlayStation 2. Although if there is something else that would fit that bill, remind me, let me know, tell me in the comments. But I enjoyed it for what little of the game I have played. Up next is EJ Club World. All I know about this is that this is a music making game experience basically, and I have another one in my collection that'll be in a later video. But I haven't tried any of these out, but I became fascinated with music making programs on the PC in the late 90s, and the idea that I could do something like that on a console was very appealing, so I snapped up a couple of music making games. Just haven't tried them yet. Up next is a game that I have a high opinion of, even though a lot of other people do not, but it's Enter the Matrix. I'm a Matrix fan. I love the original movies. I say original movies. I love all three of the movies. I loved all the game experiences that I've had with them, including this one. And I hope that the rumors I've heard recently that there may be something new on the horizon for Matrix is going to pan out. Alright, up next is Ephemeral Fantasia. Basically just another PS2 RPG that I picked up for a decent price, on the promise that one of these days it would give me a lot of hours of fun. Up next is Escape from Monkey Island. I'm a big fan of the Monkey Island games, although they can be a little over my head at times. This game is super fun up until near the end when you have to play some sort of silly game, in-game game, and if you don't get through it you can't progress, and that's where I got stuck on that. But I love the Monkey Island games. Alright, up next is ESPN NFL 2K5. If anybody out there watching this knows about NFL games, this is one of the best NFL games that has ever been released. And I say that even with all the new Madden games with the new technology behind them. But this was one of the best games. Brilliant presentation. The games themselves play really, really good. It's not too difficult and it's not too easy. And I love the picture isn't going to do it justice, but that's Chris Berman talking about the day's games and whatnot. They put together all the day's games, all of your stats and things you do in your game in such a realistic manner. I don't know, whenever I get down and get into a mood to play this, I'll play this for weeks. Okay, let's try to rush through the last handful of games here. Eternal Ring. This is a game from Software, people who did Kingsfield. And this is a very similar style game to that, first-person RPG kind of game, basically. And we have Everblue 2. When I picked this up, I was trying to pick up the first one as well, but I didn't get a chance to get that. But I have this one. I was inspired to pick this up because of the Echo, the Dolphin game I have for the Dreamcast. I really like the idea of a game where you're kind of swimming around in the ocean. I'm not sure exactly what you're doing here. Looks like maybe you're doing deep sea diving, but the underwater game thing can be really cool with a game system that can push the graphics for it. And we have Evergrace, and I don't know much about this. I know that this is a very early game in the PS2's lifespan, kind of a RPG-ish style game, but I've never played it. And then we have EverQuest Online Adventures and EverQuest Online Adventures Frontiers. Of course, these are a couple of games that you can't really play anymore right now because they were online and subscription based and yada yada yada. Console MMORPGs. I kind of wish I would have checked these out back in the day. Of course, I didn't have the internet when these were a thing. And the last game to show in this video is Extermination, a survival horror game. It doesn't quite reach the heights of a Silent Hill or Resident Evil, but not too bad, once again, for what little of the game I've played. Alright, well, that was the first installment of my PlayStation 2 collection. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one to continue on with this, but it's going to be pretty awesome to finally sit down and show off all my PS2 games. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll stick around and come back for the next parts, and I'll see you in the next one.